And you should be all set.
All right, we're recording. Cool. All right, so thanks for coming here today. If you don't have the app on your phone yet, you should take some time to download it because we're going to be doing some hands-on stuff midway through the presentation, and I want you to have the app already downloaded and configured. So if you don't have it yet, there are links on smokepoint.app. That's the website. Or you can search for SmokePoint in the App Store or the Play Store. Okay, cool. So before we jump into the actual content, this is me. I'm Gabe. I've got about 10 years of experience in emergency response and 20 years experience in the tech industry. So I've combined those two things to create this app, to create this tool. So let's talk about a problem that I'm sure we're all familiar with. So someone in the public sees a smoke and they call 911. And the dispatchers are trying to interpret these calls from multiple people who are giving different locations, trying to describe where the smoke is, right? And the dispatchers, they need to get us this information over the radio in a way that makes sense. It's a difficult problem. It's hard to do this well. And often it's impossible because the information the dispatchers are getting may not be all that accurate in the first place. So what we end up with is very little information or information that we can't trust in the first place. In fact, at this point, we don't even know what we're responding to yet. It could be nothing. So what's the best we can do? Well, we get, a unit or two up there and we look and see what's going on ourselves. And that costs us time. The worst feeling for me personally is when we drive around for 2 hours and we end up finding nothing at all. Was there actually nothing, or did we just miss it? Or will it kick up again later and we're going to have a bigger response? It just sucks, right? So let's see what would happen in this case if people in the public used SmokePoint. The first thing that would happen is you would see on a map exactly where these people were and the direction these people were pointed when they spotted that smoke. Second, you would have pictures of exactly what they saw. So this slide, I've just zoomed in on the middle of each picture to show you the smoke column in detail. So within a minute of dispatch, we already know that A, this is real, right? We can balance it out to the appropriate response if we want to. B, we know the general area where it is. And we can direct our resources to the right place more quickly. And these pictures in the map that I just showed you were actually from a real incident 2 weeks ago, just north of Boulder Creek. So in this presentation, I'm going to give you an introduction to SmokePoint and the core concepts in the app. You'll get some hands-on experience. You'll use the app along with me, and you'll develop a basic proficiency in its use. We'll walk through the example that I just showed you, and then I'll talk about some limitations of the app and some upcoming improvements that are planned in the next couple of months. And then with all the time that we have left, we'll do Q&A. So there is a lot of material to run through. So I'm going to move pretty quickly to leave as much time for Q&A as possible. But this is being recorded, so if you miss something, you can always come back and review it later. Okay, so what is SmokePoint? SmokePoint is a mobile app that helps us, the firefighters, send the right resources to the right place on a new start. The goal is to keep small fires small more of the time. It does this by using information contributed by the public and information gathered by us in the field to triangulate the locations of fires. So let's go over the fundamental concepts and some detail about how the app works, and then we'll jump right into using the app to get some hands-on experience. So at the core of SmokePoint is what is called a reading. And a reading is simply a location, a direction, and a picture. You can generate a reading in one of two ways. The first option is to use the phone itself to generate a reading. In this case, it uses the GPS in the phone, the compass in the phone, and the camera, clearly. The second method is to use an alert wildfire camera. So in this case, the location is known ahead of time because each camera is in one position and stays there. The direction is the pan value that the camera is telling us, and the picture is the latest image captured by that camera. In all cases, once you've added a reading from SmokePoint, it's stored in the cloud. And you organize these readings into what are called incidents in the app. And an incident is a collection of readings, and it has an optional name as well. By default, all incidents that you create are private, which means you are the only person who can see the readings that you've created, or add readings or remove readings. You have the option of sharing specific incidents with specific other individuals, in which case these other users can see all the readings, they can add readings, they can remove them, etc. They have the same access that you do on that incident. And everything is mirrored in real time across all the devices. You also have the option of making an incident public. And this is what we tell members of the public to do in the big spot of fire. And what this does is it makes all the readings from that incident visible to nearby users of the app. And those nearby users include the units responding to that incident. If you want to know about this in more detail, there is a recording of a training I gave to the public on the website. And we will go over how to add public readings to an incident later on in the hands-on portion of the training. So once you have 2 or more readings on an incident, the app will start to calculate an estimated location of the target. So it does this using triangulation. And you can use that estimated target to direct your resources to the right place. The readings, just as a reminder, can come from any combination of from the public, from your phone that you have taken, or a person you shared the incident with has taken, or an alert wildfire camera. So you can have 2 wildfire cameras, 1 wildfire camera, and a reading off your phone, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that's the basic concepts in the app. let's jump right into hands-on. And I'm going to present my phone screen so you can see everything that I'm doing. If you could launch the app as well, that would be helpful. And if it's your first time launching the app, it's going to take you through a slideshow that you can skip through because you're getting all the same information in this presentation. Okay, so I apologize if I am moving too quickly and you haven't caught up, but I'm just going to jump into it. So when you open the app, you're presented with a list of all the incidents that you've created in the past or that someone else has sent you to join. And I have a ton of them because, of course, I've been using the app a lot. If you haven't created one before, the list will be empty and it will be encouraging you to create a new incident. So every time that you respond on a new smoke, or whatever, you're going to want to create a new incident in the app to collect the readings specific to that, target. So to do that, you press the new incident button on the bottom of the screen, and that pops up a dialog where you can give it a name and optionally toggle it to be public. You don't have to add a name. And if you don't want to type anything, you can tap one of these pre-made names that are just the date with one word after them. Your choice. If you want to make it public, you just hit the toggle and it's public. So I'm going to make mine public because I want you to see the readings I create, but you can leave your new incident as private for the time being. Okay. And when you're ready, you just hit the continue button and we're off to the races. So this is the incident view. There are two ways to view an incident. There's the map mode, which we're on by default, and there's the list mode, which of course starts empty because we haven't added any readings yet. So in the map mode, I can, pan around like your typical map. And when readings are added, they will show up here on the map. So let's first create a reading using the phone. So to create a reading using the phone, you hit the plus button on the bottom right and hit take reading. Now, I'm currently holding my phone horizontally, and what you'll see is a map that rotates along with the phone. And the red line points in the direction that the phone is facing. I should have mentioned, you may have noticed when you hit take reading for the first time, it took you through a slideshow about how to make sure that the phone compass works correctly. It's really important. That content is actually really important. So I'll go over it again later on. For now, I'm just going to skip over it so that we can get through, all the different ways of taking a reading. So this map view, it helps me get a little bit of confidence that the phone compass is actually calibrated well. So for example, I can sight it against a mountaintop that I'm familiar with and see that the topographical map, aligns with it, etc. But to actually add the reading, what we'll want to do is rotate the phone up vertically, and that enters camera mode. So from here, I can sight my target in the crosshairs. I can zoom in by pinching, zoom out, etc. And when I'm happy with the target alignment, I can hit the green check mark on the bottom of the screen. Okay, so now you can see a new reading was created and put on the map. It shows me the direction that I was pointing the camera. I can tap on the reading in the map view, and I can see the picture that I took, right, and exactly where the target was. And it also shows me the latitude and longitude of where the phone was when that reading was taken, and the direction relative to true north that the phone was pointed. If I tap on the coordinates, it pops up a dialog that shows the same coordinates in various different display modes, just in case you want to communicate them to someone in a specific way. Okay, I also can now see the same reading on the list view, where it tells me this reading has a picture attached. It shows me the direction that the phone was pointed. And again, I can tap on it and it opens up the same exact view of that reading. Okay, so now that we've taken a reading with our phone, let's do the same thing using an alert wildfire camera. So if I zoom out here, you can see there are a crap load of alert wildfire cameras across the West Coast and particularly in California. If you don't see these on your map, it could be that the alert wildfire overlay is off. To turn that on, just hit the layers button and make sure that that layer is toggled on and hit update map. Okay, so to take an alert wildfire camera reading, we're just going to tap on the camera that we want to look at. So here's Jasper Ridge. And again, I can zoom in, I can pan around on the image. And every 10 seconds, the camera image is going to update. It's going to pull the latest image off of the internet. So when I spot the smoke here, I can just tap on the image and it's going to place the crosshairs. If I didn't tap quite accurately, I can tune it by just panning on the image, right? So you can see that the bearing on the bottom is changing as I pan. So let's say, you know, okay, so I want it to be right on that, what looks like it might be a power pole. And as soon as I'm happy, I press add reading, and it has added a reading to the map as well as the list view. Okay, so again, I can tap on the reading and I can see here exactly where that target was placed and the image that the camera had when I created that reading. You may also notice this tab bar on the top. So I can toggle between the reading that I took and the live view of the camera. So if you want to check like how have conditions changed since I took that reading, etc., you can get to that here. And again, I can zoom around and pan and stuff like that. Okay, so the last way to add a reading is to use a public reading. So to do that, I am going to go into the layers button again. And you may notice this public readings layer. I'm going to toggle that on. Now, there are two adjustments here on public readings that you can use to narrow down the number of readings that you're looking at. So the first is the radius. So I can tighten the radius down to get stuff that's closer to me if I want to. And additionally, I can change the time window from anything in the last hour to anything in the last 4 weeks. So I'm just gonna, so, you know, I tend to park it on 2 hours or something like that in general, because that's typically the stuff that I care about. And then hit update map. Now, what you'll see is public readings pop up. They look like this little dude who has his hand raised, and then it's annotated with how long ago the reading was taken. So just in case this person took a reading that they don't want us seeing, I am going to expand this back and use one that I'm familiar with. So here's another public reading someone took. And again, I can tap on it and I can see that this person took a reading of a bush, which is very interesting. And this reading is not part of my incident yet. I have to add it if I want to. And the way I do that is by pressing copy to incident. So now that readings icon has changed and it is part of my incident here in the list, right? So again, I can tap on it. I can see some information about it, etc. So you may have noticed that when I added a reading that resulted in two readings intersecting, a target pop-up appeared here on the bottom. So this tells me that SmokePoint has created an estimate of the target position, and the pop-up, that little arrow rotates to point at that target at all times, and it tells me how far away it is from me, as well as the bearing from my position. Again, I can tap on the target pop-out and see the coordinates, and I can additionally zoom in on it on the map, and it takes me to where the red dot is. So lastly, I can change the base layer of the map by simply toggling the base layer button on the top there, and it shows me what kind of terrain is in that area. You know, there's a house, etc. And I can toggle back at any time. Okay, so now that I have multiple readings here, I might want to make some changes to improve the quality of the target estimation. So first of all, I'm not a huge fan of this public reading. It doesn't seem to be pointing at the target at all, right? So I'm going to remove it. So the way that I do that is I tap on it and I press the delete button. If you delete a reading, it's gone, just so you know. So, you know, use it sparingly. But once I do that, that reading is now no longer part of the incident. The public reading is still there. I could add it back, I guess, but it's not part of the incident anymore. And that has changed the target estimation here. You may have also noticed this orange box. So this gives you an idea of how of the uncertainty of the target estimation. So, you know, ideally the target is right on the red dot, but it could hypothetically be anywhere inside the orange box, or even sometimes outside of it. I'll talk about what we're doing to improve the quality of that calculation towards the end of the presentation. Okay, so let's say that I don't want to delete a reading, but I do want to just hide it temporarily because I'm not sure if I want to use it. So what I can do is tap on the reading and just hit hide on map. So at this point, that reading, it's still part of the incident, but it's not being shown. And additionally, it excludes that reading from target calculation. So this is a way to just make a reading be not part of it for a little while. And I can just sort of play around, right? So, you know, I can add the reading back by tapping on it again and pressing show on map. And now it's got the target estimation again. You can see people have been adding public readings, which is cool, and they just pop up on the map, you know, as they appear. So this is what you'll experience, you know, on a real incident, is that people in the public will just start adding things. It's pretty cool. Okay. So the next thing I want to tell you about is collaboration, sharing an incident with a specific person, and how to export the incident data once you are happy with it, if you want to, say, export it to Google Earth or Avenza or something like that. So to share an incident with specific people, what you do is press the menu button in the top right, and there's this collaborate button. So I'm going to press this, and I'm actually going to send this to, let's send it to Chief Cosgrave. And hopefully he will tap on the link when he gets it. And what you'll see is this icon here is going to change from a 0 to a 1 when he joins. And that means that he's, part of this incident. He can add readings, he can remove readings, etc. So now you see it pop to 1, and I can tap on it and see the phone model that he's using. And it's assigned him a color. So if he were to add a reading to this incident, it would appear and the line would be that color yellow instead of black, which is my color. Okay. So the last thing is to export the KML. If you're not familiar with KML, it's just a file format that encodes geographical information. So, waypoints, lines, paths, et cetera, et cetera. It's a standard that a lot of apps understand. So so it can be useful to export to people who aren't using SmokePoint or want to display it in some other way. So I'm going to pop this into Google Earth, and I can see that it is showing the incident data here on Google Earth. It's got the readings on the right and the target here in the center. That's pretty much that. So we'll pop back into the app. So there you go. Chief Cosgrave has added a reading, and his appeared in yellow, right? So you can start to get an idea of the various ways this app can be used. There's a lot of options. I encourage you to play around and see what works for you personally. Okay, so that's the main features of the app. I hope that was educational. I'm going to go through one example, this incident in Boulder Creek. And I'll turn off public readings just so we're not distracted for now. So this is the incident I showed you at the very beginning of the presentation. So in this case, these 3 readings are actually from 3 different individuals who happened to be at their homes. And they used SmokePoint when they saw this smoke column start to appear. So I will just tap on each one and show you. So this is one person who was using an iPhone 12 Pro Max. And it looks like they had a pretty good view of the smoke column, and they did a pretty decent job of targeting it at its base. You've got this individual who had an excellent view and did an excellent job of targeting. They were using an iPhone 12 Pro. And then you have this person here who was using an Android Pixel 5 phone. Kind of looks like their view was obstructed a bit. So maybe they didn't zero in exactly on the base of the target. It's kind of hard to tell. You may notice that the lines are not intersecting at exactly the same point. So that immediately should tell you that these readings are not necessarily perfect. Right? In this case, it could be that the compass on one of these devices was not calibrated correctly, or the person did not take the important steps of avoiding things that cause compass interference, like cars or large metal objects or electronics. It's really important when you're taking a reading, especially for us, to step out of our rig, to walk 4 car lengths away from it, if possible, and to perform the compass calibration steps, which are really easy. I'll show you them right now, before every single reading that we take. So the compass calibration steps are this: you hold your phone up and you wave it in a figure 8. It's that simple. You can do it at any time. It doesn't have to be when you're on the reading page or anything, but you definitely want to get in the habit of doing that a few times before every single reading, and you should be in pretty good shape. In fact, this individual here, as you'll see, they were nearly right on target. So the fire was actually right about here. Okay. So if there are alert wildfire cameras close by, you probably want to use those. So something that I do is I get a sense of where the fire is using public readings, if possible. And then if I have alert wildfire cameras, then I'll prefer to use those to get a higher accuracy triangulation. So in this case, there were actually 2 alert wildfire cameras in view. Here's one that had an excellent view, right? So I'll show that on the map. And then another was a little bit more in the distance, but it was still pretty solid. And I'll show that on the map as well. So now you've got a lot more information, and the app prefers the alert wildfire cameras for triangulation. So you can see it's pulled the target location closer to where those 2 cameras intersect. Now in this case, to be honest, like I'm not even sure if I want to include the public readings in the calculation, so I'm just going to hide them. And now I've got a much cleaner view, and the target calculation, there's a lot more confidence in it. And again, the fire was right about here, which was a couple hundred feet away from the red dot. So
Hey,
in
Gabe,
this case, yeah.
actually, where that red dot is at is exactly where the fire was.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
That's even better.
Exactly where the fire was.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
That was my fire.
Well, thank you for improving this demo. Yeah. So I was about to say that this case is a kind of ideal usage of the app and pretty ideal conditions, right? You had 2 alert wildfire cameras that saw the fire pretty much in the center of their view. And the public had a nice clear view, so you could get a really good idea of where the fire was, at least the general area, pretty early on. So now that you've seen the demo, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're going to be doing to improve the app and why we're doing those things. So we're done with me sharing my phone screen. So let's talk about some upcoming improvements. So for reasons that should be obvious at this point, the target prediction accuracy is really important, right? If the target prediction is off, you might have the wrong idea about where to send your units. So there's a couple of tracks to improve here. So the first is the mobile phones are, again, very easy to interfere with in terms of the compass reading. So it could be that a person has lined their camera up perfectly, but the compass is 10, 20 degrees off anyway, which is terrible. When all of the right steps are done for every single reading, newer phones are actually very good. They're within a degree or 2 of the correct heading. When the steps are not taken, like if someone's standing next to their car on a highway, for example, it can be really inaccurate, like 10 or more degrees off. So use that information when you are looking at a public reading if you want to actually use it just to get some situational awareness, or if you want to use it for triangulation. Secondly, the search area, that orange box calculation, I'm working with some people from Stanford to apply an algorithm that I don't understand the details of exactly, to do a better job of calculating that, that error ellipse and putting it on the map. And the third thing, which is really exciting, is The alert wildfire cameras are really, really powerful. They're quite accurate in general, but because of problems with how they're mounted, they could be a little bit off axis or tilted, or they could have been not calibrated perfectly relative to true north. So sometimes you will get an error of up to 2 degrees or so, which is not a huge amount unless it's a really, really long distance away, in which case that can actually translate to like half a mile or more of distance on Earth. So there's a project underway there that I will be helping to accelerate that corrects for all of these problems using star field maps and ridgeline correction. So once that is done, the alert wildfire cameras will be really, really accurate, and you can trust them a lot. The next thing that we're doing has to do with how public incidents are integrated into the user interface of the app. We've gotten some people have told us that it's a little bit unintuitive, which I totally agree with. So what we'll do is when you open the app on the main screen, you'll see your private or your personal incidents, but then also a tab for all the public incidents. And there'll be a way to toggle on a map from there that just shows the public readings. And then from there, you can pick a couple of them and add them to your incident, or what have you. So that's stuff that will be coming down the pipeline soon. So let's do a quick review. So you learned what SmokePoint provides, early in the dispatch. You learned how to use it to triangulate a fire. You got some hands-on experience. You've got a basic proficiency. We looked at a real-world example, learned about current limitations and what we're doing to address those. Lastly, I really want to hear how you're using the app, if it's working, if it's not, if you have suggestions or you find issues. There's this icon everywhere in the app. If you tap it, it will take you to a form. You can type some, like a message to me, put in your email address so we can chat about it, and I'll try to address your concerns. So with the time we have left, which is 15-20 minutes, I am happy to take any questions anybody has.
Can you address the GPS format?
I'm sorry?
The GPS format that you can select on the app?
Yeah. What do you want to know about it specifically?
That it can be changed to match other formats.
Oh, yeah. So I showed you, if you tap on coordinates, it shows you the same coordinates in multiple different ways. You can also enter the settings, which is on the main screen. It's a little gear icon. You can pick, either metric or imperial units for distance, and you can also change the default display for coordinates. So if you want to use, degrees, minutes, seconds for all your coordinates by default, you can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, Gabe, Bob Simmons here. I got a quick question for you.
Sure.
So when you export the KML and you send it to Google Earth, can you do that into a Venza?
Yes, you can. I could have picked a Venza and I would have done the same thing. Yeah.
So I picked a Venza and I downloaded it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But because I don't have those maps loaded in my Venza for that area, nothing came up. So you have to have
okay. Yeah, so you have to have a map for the area where that target is. That makes sense to me. That sounds like a feature and or a limitation of a Venza, and I'm not that familiar with a Venza to know what to do about it.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping it would just find the map and just pop everything all together.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah, that's the reason I don't use a Venza by default. I like a program called Gaia, where you can download maps for, pretty much anywhere in the world. And then I use a Venza if there's a specific incident, where we have a map created for that or something like that, if I want to or if I want to look at a ranger map or something like that, I use Avenza.
Sounds like we're gonna keep Frank Rogers in the loop. I know he's in here somewhere.
Nobody here but us chickens.
And that was the only question I had. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks.
Hey, Gabe, this is Cameron McFadden from the Felton ECC. I've got actually a whole series of questions.
Great.
So one of the things that we have an issue with is like a lot of the times we'll get calls from the public and they're giving us these varying distances or these lat longs, but it'll be 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes into the incident. Is there any way we can communicate, not maybe specifically with us, but somebody in the field who has this app on their phone to let them know that, hey, we already have this call. Don't dial 911 unless you have a new report of a smoke or something along those lines, just to reduce the amount of duplicate phone calls that we get with not any new updated information that's helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I had thought about that at one point, and so I'd love to do something like that. The consideration that I want to make sure is handled is to ensure that there's never, ever, ever a like false positive where somebody thinks that an incident has been called into 911, but it actually hasn't, right? That would be really bad. So until there's a way, so probably the way to do that would be to give the dispatch center a special channel into the app to like place a marker or something on the map that says, hey, we're aware of something in this general area. You don't have to call us, right? But I certainly wouldn't want to screw that up.
I would go with
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm happy to talk about it more for sure.
No problem.
Okay. Another question then I have is a lot of the times on top of that, we'll get people that call in and ask us to either update Pulse Point or put more information out on Pulse Point. Is there any communication between Pulse Point and this app that you have created so people can see the correlation between the two and know that there is a response started?
Not yet. I haven't spoken to Pulse Point. I have spoken to Tablet Command about an integration, and verbally, you know, everybody's on board. I wanted to make sure there's a couple of things I want to do to make sure that the data that SmokePoint is exporting is really, really trustworthy before I put the stuff onto Tablet Command. Pulse Point, it could be the same kind of thing. And I would be totally happy to reach out to them and talk to them about some kind of an integration. Yeah, but I haven't yet. It just hasn't been enough time yet, really. Yeah. So keep asking your questions as soon as you've exhausted your list. I've got one on chat from the 1765 crew. Okay, I'll assume you're done for the time being. So 1765 wants to know, does this app work without a data connection? Will you have to have a cellular data connection to upload the data to SmokePoint so others using the app can see the information that you've gathered? The answer is it does work offline. In fact, let me just present my phone screen again. And I'll show you what it looks like when you don't have a data connection. Okay, so here's my phone screen. I'm just gonna kill all my stuff. So at this point, the banner popped up here. You can take readings when you're offline, no problem. It's gonna collect all the data and store it on the device. And then once you're in Rage again, if you open the app, it will sync that data to the cloud, and it'll tell you that it's in progress. And when it's done, that banner will disappear. So. Yeah.
Okay, Gabe, sorry, this is Cameron again. I do have a couple more questions. I had a technical call there. So as far as dealing with the public, then is there I know like there's areas of the state that are starting to do text 911, but we are still unable to receive like video or pictures or anything like that.
Okay.
So if people are trying to send us either a picture of what they're seeing or something, I know we still don't have the capabilities of doing that.
Okay.
Is that conveyed in the app?
So the picture is visible there. Yeah. If you open the app and you take a look at a public reading, you tap on it, it'll show a picture. It would be possible to actually create a text message from the app in sort of a standard way, and ping that over to 911. And I suppose if it can accept a picture, that's great. And if it can't, then at least responders would know that Smoke Point has the picture on it, and they can open the app up and take a look for themselves. So it's something on the list. Again, it's one of those things, you know, that we want to make sure is done really, really correctly if the app is going to text to 911. But it's a great idea.
So, and is there any way for us, if somebody is giving us this lat long or the target point, is there any way for us in the 911 center to determine if their phone has been calibrated or if there is any interference without specifically asking them?
Yeah, that's the real challenge here. So so what I'm planning on doing is writing some code that detects if a person has done the calibration motion, which I think can be done with pretty high accuracy. But you really can't know for sure. Like the interference, unfortunately, cannot be measured. That's one of the problems with it. So if a person is right next to their car but has done the motion, there's no way to know that. So what you may be able to rely on is if the person has done the motion, then they've clearly read the instructions about how to get a good reading, and they've followed the other ones as well. But there's no way to guarantee it. So it's just something you want to keep in mind when the public shares a reading. It's not necessarily, it could be, but it's not necessarily going to be a dead on, reading. So my personal experience, if I'm, on the road and I walk away from the engine and I do all the steps and I take a reading, it is on within a degree or two. But that's confidence I would want to have in my own reading that I took, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I then Gabe, my final question that I have right now is there a way for our either prevention or investigators to get in contact with the individuals? You showed us the public picture of the bush. If somebody took a picture of that and then posted it on Smoke Point and it was basically the origin and cause, is there a way for our prevention officers to pull that data, including their cell phone number, so they could recontact that initial RP?
Right. So that would be great for the dispatch center, right? My concern with attaching a phone number to it was I tried to keep the information collected about an individual to the smallest amount of information possible to respect people's privacy. I think it's definitely doable, for sure. And I just wasn't sure where to make that trade-off, where to draw the line between collecting personal information and collecting information that would be useful to us. What it would take is a special login for the dispatchers to use to see more information about each reading, which could definitely be done. However, I wonder if a person uses Smoke Point, they're instructed very explicitly that this is not an alternative to calling 911, right? it's there to augment the information that they provide to the dispatcher, but it is not a replacement for the alerting step of emergency services. So, you know, hopefully that same person has called the dispatcher and provided their contact info through those means. You know, we should get some experience with how the app integrates into the dispatch and see if this is a consistent problem. And if it is, then I'd be happy to talk about how to create, you know, like a special login for the dispatchers.
Gabe, this is Rich Sampson.
Hey, Rich.
I know I mean, his point about prevention, having the first person who sees the fire,
Yeah.
at least this would give us a date and time and a possible location they saw it from.
Yeah.
But being able to go back to that individual and ask them questions during the investigation, maybe a trade-off could be that if it's the first person to call in, having some type of thing come on their screen, hey, you may be, we may need your information, and if you have some information, please contact this number for the investigation or whatever. I don't know, some type of outreach.
Yeah, that makes sense. Something that they can, you know, elect to do would definitely be possible. So that's something, if you could just, contact me, then we can talk about that in a bit more detail.
Yeah, we can do that offline.
Yeah, cool. Okay. There's a couple of chat questions that I'll get to. So for Harbor Patrol response, if we are using this for a last known position on the water, we need GPS in degrees, minutes, seconds to be the most efficient. Yeah, so you can, so anytime you see coordinates in the app, you can tap on them and see those coordinates in degrees, minutes, seconds, in decimal with degree minutes, and in decimal degrees. You can also change your preferred display format from the settings, and that will show all coordinates by default in DMS if that's what you want. So hopefully that helps. Engine 1765. Is there going to be already a feature on the map where you can click on the red dot and it shows the closest street address to the incident to route it? That's definitely possible. I think what might be the easiest thing to do in that case is just to be able to send those coordinates to Google Maps and have it tell you, because it's going to do a better job than I would for sure. So I'll take that as a feature request for, instead of, so in addition to exporting KML, just like have a way to navigate to, you know, or whatever, that that spot. That's a great suggestion. The next question, have I thought about what 3 words? Yes, I have. It's kind of on the list, but it's not the highest thing on the list to do. And additionally, it requires an integration that's non-trivial with the what 3 words algorithm. So it's on my list to reach out to them and to start talking about that specific integration. It just hasn't gotten to the top of the list yet. Yeah.
Gabe, Bob Simmons, I got another question for you.
Sure.
So if you're within the forest and you're trying to see the forest, the best way to do that is get up underneath the high tension lines so that you can see out. How much will that affect the compass? Do you know?
Yeah. Well, so on the Huddart Park incident last week or 2 weeks ago, I forget, there were actually a number of readings taken from right underneath the high voltage lines there.
Yeah, that's
and
what the ICP was.
They were actually really close to dead on. So it looks as though it didn't have that much of an impact, which is cool.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Let's see. Cosgrave is asking, do you want to show map layers other than topographical and satellite? Sure. Whatever is the most useful to you all wouldn't be is not necessarily difficult to integrate. It depends on what the mapping system I'm using supports.
But
So I'm using.
there is a street map, right? When someone was asking about putting the street addresses, it was
Yeah. There's a street map I could put on there. I'm not sure if it shows addresses per se. You know, like ideally it would be something like what the county has done, where street addresses are like part of, like all along the street, right? Something like that.
You gotta get them to the block anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I could do
it's hard
that.
to see on the topo map you had up, but if they do the street layer, it'll be easier.
So the easiest thing for me to do to start with is just get you the coordinates that you can export to another app and use that app to get you the street address. And then that I can do pretty quickly. Then looking into a map layer that has that information just so you can, you know, skip a step. I'll take a look at that as well. Yeah.
Gabe, Cameron, for your layer that has the street addresses, might try Esri's open source. It's pretty good. I've used it before.
Okay. Cool. I'll take a look at that. Thank you. Okay. So we're technically at the end of the time. Any final questions before we break?
The 17 entries that were made from people playing around, just sending, can you delete those so they don't show up, or you just do the time thing to rule
Yeah,
them?
I just use the time thing to filter them out. Yeah.
But if an
go
individual
away.
wants to delete their picture, can they delete that once it's been put out there?
Oh yeah, so you can hit the menu in the top right on your incident and just toggle public off, and then it'll all go away. Yeah.
Great.
Yep. Cool. Well, thanks everyone. I hope this was
Hey, Gabe?
enjoyable. Yes, Jim.
Hey, so I just had one comment for ECC and Rich Sampson, is that if the controllers of the camera turn those cameras and focus them early on in the incident, it makes this a lot more accurate.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. Yeah. That will eventually, so eventually when that correction work is done on the alert wildfire cameras, that will be significantly mitigated. But for now, until that's done, if the smoke is in the center of the window and it's zoomed in, you get a much, much better reading off the camera. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you very much, everybody. If you want to talk to me afterwards, Cosgrave has my info, and you can also get a contact on the website as well. That'll get to me also. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much.